What is up, guys? Welcome back. If you're new here, I'm Kevin Crates. This is the channel where we go over to crypto news followed by 5 charts every day. Today we're looking at Bitcoin, Ethereum, SNX, Quant, and AXS. And as always, timestamps are down in the description below. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn that bell on to catch notifications for all daily uploads. The market is pumping and Ethereum is leading the way. We've talked about this for many weeks. The Ethereum London hard fork is finally here and Ethereum is trading above 2,800 at the time of filming this, carrying up the entire market, outperforming Bitcoin. Bitcoin trading around 41,000, but Ethereum very clearly leading this entire market pump and outperforming Bitcoin. We're going to be diving into the charts in a little bit, but the entire market is reflecting this price action. And if you guys haven't been to this website behind me, make sure to check it out. It's really cool. etherchain.org/burn. It tracks all the Ethereum being burnt, refreshes every 10 seconds or so. And so far we are sitting at 2,790.2 Ethereum burnt, and Ethereum is officially deflationary. So the question on everyone's mind at the moment is what happens next. Now that the London hard fork is over, Ethereum is officially deflationary and outperforming Bitcoin. Are we going to see Ethereum continue to pump? Are we going to see Ethereum carry the entire market? Or are we going to see a correction in the coming days where Ethereum's price action dips back down in price now that the hype is over? We're going to dive into the charts in a moment, talk about all that. As far as the market goes, everything is looking crazy bullish and there is a lot of opportunity out there. Looking at Bitcoin's daily chart, let's zoom in here, turn on our notes from last time. As far as price action goes for Bitcoin, Bitcoin is getting clearly carried by Ethereum. And if we jump to the 4-hour chart, turn off all these notes for a moment. We looked at this yesterday. I'll show you guys again who are new here. As far as Ethereum and Bitcoin go, here's Bitcoin's 4-hour chart, and here is Ethereum's 4-hour chart. Ethereum very clearly outperforming Bitcoin and carrying the entire market, including Bitcoin, because you can see here Bitcoin was pretty ready to start dipping back down in price. But all this price action for the time being, in my opinion, is completely influenced by Ethereum's price action. So the question is where is Bitcoin headed next? Turning on our notes from last time, as far as price action goes, we talked about Bitcoin needing to get back above 40.5 to get bullish, which it did, but now it's still stuck underneath the Kumo cloud. So as far as the price target goes, it's really got to get above 41,000 at this point. Getting above 40.5 is great. We're clearly seeing Bitcoin move in a much more bullish manner than it was previously, but if it can't get above 41,000, I would not be surprised to see prices pull back down. My first pull down target would be around 39.6, 39.5, and below that, I would keep my eye on these price targets of around 38.7, 37.8. We saw a lot of support for Bitcoin. I'm not sure why that price range had so much support. If it was just Ethereum leading into the pump, we saw a bit of a pump off Bitcoin there as well, or if there's a strong support in that range now. But as far as price action goes, that would be the major support I would keep my eye on. We've talked about 38.5, 38.7 being a major support for Bitcoin to remain bullish. Anything below that, Bitcoin would be getting pretty bearish. I wouldn't be too surprised to see it trading in between 37.7 and 38.5 again. But as far as price action goes, it currently needs to get above 41,000. Pullback target would be 39.6. Let's jump back to the daily chart for a moment. Looking at Bitcoin's daily chart, I mean, Bitcoin looks decent as far as the daily chart goes for sure. There's no denying that. Bit of an upward candle here that hasn't really closed yet. There's about an hour and 20 minutes until this daily candle closes. But regardless, there is no doubt that Bitcoin looks bullish. I mean, let me turn the notes on so I can draw a bit here. The baseline is out, conversion line is out. We're just really waiting on that lagging span on the daily. And once that pops out, that's a breakout situation for Bitcoin potentially, and it could go as high as 44, 45,000 again. I mean, initially it would have to get above 42, 43,000 to start, but Bitcoin is undeniably looking much more bullish than it has in months. And the question really is Ethereum going to be able to carry Bitcoin and the entire market? Because make no mistake, although I am saying Bitcoin looks very bullish, I mean, if we take off the Ichimoku chart and just hide that for a moment, Bitcoin is still stuck in this range. I mean, it technically hasn't even challenged 43, 43.2 yet to say that it's popping out of this range just yet. And there's a lot of indication of a possible downtrend here. But for the most part, I mean, it's really reliant on Ethereum at the moment. And as far as the 4-hour goes, when we compare the two, let me jump back to the 4-hour chart, turn off all the notes, Bitcoin, Ethereum. Bitcoin, Ethereum. It's very clearly that Ethereum is carrying the market, and it's just a matter of a question to find out if Ethereum is going to break above 28,000. Let's go back to Bitcoin. We'll talk about Ethereum in a moment, but the reason we're talking about Ethereum is because it just matters, because if Ethereum can't continue this pump, I really don't doubt that we'll see Bitcoin trend back down. Even on the Kumo cloud, we're seeing a bit of a trend change on the 4 hour for Bitcoin. Compare that to Ethereum. Ethereum has no intentions of slowing down this uptrend. Bitcoin's indicators for the most part are saying that it's kind of just stuck. It's not even really breaking out of the Kumo cloud. It's just waiting for the green light from Ethereum to continue this pump. Or in my opinion, it looks like Bitcoin wants to trend back down in price. Now, how low that is still a question. I mean, we talked about these pullback targets, but Bitcoin is looking still much weaker than Ethereum. So as far as price targets go, let's turn these notes on. You want to see Bitcoin break above 41,000. I mean, we put this price target here. It's got to break above 41,000 with strength. You want to see it around 41.2, 41.5, building support in that range and making a push for 42.6 and 43,000 after that. But as far as pullback targets go, I'm going to keep my eye on 39.6 to start. Below that, that same price target we talked about for so many days, 38.5, 38.7, a very crucial support for Bitcoin to remain with some bullish momentum. If it loses that, there is quite a bit of support around 37.8. But if 37.8 is lost, I'm going to assume Bitcoin is headed all the way back down to 36.3 at minimum because of this moving average down here. 37.8, there's a lot of support there. It will catch itself around 37.2, but if 37.8 is lost, I'll be keeping my eye out for 36.3. But the main supports that I'll be watching as a pullback for the time being is around 39.6 and 38.7, resistance at 41,000. Looking at Ethereum's daily chart, let's zoom in here and turn on our notes from last time. Ethereum moving exactly how we talked about for many days now, still looking very bullish as far as price action goes. Ethereum still looks great. I mean, there's an hour until this candle closes, but Ethereum on the daily looks amazing. Let's jump to the 4 hour chart, turn off our notes and zoom out for a moment here and take a look at price action. Ethereum's 4 hour chart looks amazing. There's no denying that Ethereum looks extremely bullish on almost every time frame. We're going to look at Ethereum from a different perspective. We're going to turn off the Ichimoku for a minute. We're going to turn on the VWAP and we're going to jump over to the 15-minute chart. We're going to compare this with Bitcoin as well. So let's zoom out here and take a look back when Ethereum had that dip to 1700. So let's compare this with Bitcoin first. Bitcoin, when it had that crazy dip down to around 2,900, shoots above the 600 EMA, the VWAP follows. We see all this price action, and then around August 1st, Bitcoin dips below. I thought it was going to continue this downtrend, but right around here, I mean, totally influenced by Ethereum in my opinion, gets a bit of a spike, wants to dip back down, and now the day of the London hard fork, this is what we are seeing from Bitcoin. I think Bitcoin genuinely looks like it wants to trend down in price, but all this price action here is Ethereum carrying up the entire market. I mean, look how high it's trading off of the VWAP. I think Bitcoin is potentially due for a drop back down to 39.6 minimum, but at the end of the day, there is no reason why all of this can't move up in price if there is enough bullish price momentum. If we jump over to Ethereum and compare this with Ethereum's chart, same story. Ethereum was trading around 1700, shoots above the 600 EMA and never drops below. Again, another indication of how much Ethereum is outperforming Bitcoin. There are a few other things to compare on this 15-minute chart as well. When you look at the 600 EMA, when you look at the VWAP, all indications are saying that this is a very clear upward slope and upward momentum. Now, I do feel this has gotten a little overextended. We may see a bit of a correction on that. It is showing signs of running into quite a bit of resistance in that 2800 area. But if we compare this to Bitcoin, see that 600 EMA, nice upward slope, and it looks like it flatlines around there and kind of starts to dip down in price, but it looks like it's trying to be carried back up. It's not really even an upward slope at this point. It's kind of just flat, which is why I do feel that Bitcoin will drop back down to at least 39.7 and potentially from there 39.2 and some of those lower price targets we talked about. But again, it really all depends on what happens with Ethereum. If we take a look at Ethereum, Ethereum is showing signs of not slowing down on this upward slope and this upward momentum. Even if this does correct, that doesn't necessarily mean this may not continue. We'll keep an eye on it here every day, but let's jump back to the 4 hour chart, turn back on the Ichimoku, turn off the VWAP, zoom in, and let's turn on our notes from before and talk about some price targets for Ethereum. I mean, Ethereum is pretty straightforward at this point. That 2,800 is a must. If it can't break 2,800, we should see prices pull down. My first pull down target would be, 2,671 is pretty low. So I keep my eye on this price range here first, around 27.46. But if it loses 26.46, I keep my eye on 26.71. Below that, I keep my eye on 26.40. 26.71, 26.40, same thing. So let's just forget about that one. Look over here. So 25.53. So price targets for Ethereum, pretty straightforward. If it can't get above 2,800 soon and build strength above that price range, we should see some of this momentum drop, and we should see a bit of a pullback and a bit of a correction, because this has been a very aggressive move, and Ethereum does not look like it's ready to slow down by any means. But a bit of a pull down like you see here is not really a big deal. So pullback targets for Ethereum, 26.46 or 27.46 would be the first one. Below that, I keep my eye on 26.71, and below that 25.53. And then if there's any signs that Ethereum is really starting to lose momentum, I keep my eye on 24.55. If 24.55 is lost, then I start looking for 23.30, but that's a little ways out of the price targets for now. I don't think it's going to get that low anytime soon. 24.55 is definitely a possibility on a pullback, depending on how hard of a correction we see. 24.55 I think is a possibility. 23.34 maybe a day or so away if there is that level of correction. So price targets for the time being for Ethereum, 27.46 would be my first pullback. Below that, 26.71, 25.53, and 24.55. But Ethereum does look insanely bullish. If we jump to the one-day chart, turn off all these notes, there's less than an hour left, 52 minutes until this daily candle closes. And this is still a very bullish setup. Look at this and compare this to Bitcoin's daily chart. Now, Bitcoin's setup is lagging a little bit behind. Still a bullish setup, don't get me wrong, but Ethereum looks much more bullish. Conversion line is out, baseline almost out, lagging span is about to pop out. And on the daily, this is a decent setup for a potential breakout, maybe a few days away. And if we jump to the weekly chart and compare the two again, this is Ethereum's weekly chart. If it gets above 2850, very bullish. Compare that again to Bitcoin's weekly chart, pressed right up against the Kumo cloud, needs to get back towards 47,000 to be remotely bullish. But this is still a much more potentially bearish scenario, pressed right up against the Kumo cloud like that, versus Ethereum. Ethereum is outperforming Bitcoin on so many different time frames and looks extremely bullish. And with the whole EIP 1559 being deflationary, anything is really possible here. But for the time being, as far as pullback targets go, keep my eye on 27.46, below that 26.71, below that 25.53, and the lowest target I keep my eye on for the time being is 24.55 for Ethereum. Looking at SNX's daily chart, let's zoom in here, turn on our notes from last time we talked about SNX. We talked about SNX for quite a bit leading up to the Optimism integration. As far as everything goes with SNX, I still think SNX looks very bullish. I think SNX was about to break out, but leading into the market having a bit of a dip here, SNX got robbed of that breakout. And I think SNX's chart very clearly continues to look like it wants to push up in price. So it's moved over a little bit. It almost lost the Kumo cloud here, but you can see if I turn off all these notes, challenged the Kumo cloud, tried to press into it, got rejected that moving average, but it did press above. And I feel the reason it got rejected was because of the market dipping and the conditions of the market at that time. Look how it just rode the side of the Kumo cloud here, continued to battle to try to press back in price. And then we see here, SNX has managed to push back and towards the Kumo cloud, and there's really no resistance left up ahead. If SNX can continue this price action, get towards around $10, $11 and maintain that price range, SNX has the potential to break out, in my opinion, as far as price action goes. Its major resistance is going to be up here as this moving average comes around here. So around $12 is going to be a big resistance level for SNX, but I would not be surprised to see SNX head towards $12. But for the time being, it does have a lot of support in the range that it's in. I have seen SNX break above 10.1, which was a price range we talked about, where SNX does have the ability to get bullish, but SNX continues to get rejected around $11 and get pushed back down. But in my opinion, this chart wants to push up in price. So as far as price targets go, let's jump to the 4-hour chart, keep our notes on, and look at some price targets on the 4-hour chart. So it's going to run through some resistance around 11.2 if it manages to push back up that high. But as far as price action goes, as long as the market remains decently bullish in the state it's in, I would not be surprised to see SNX trading at least towards $12 for the time being. It's got a bit of resistance around 13.2 and above there, I could see SNX pushing as high as $15. It clearly wants to, it just keeps getting pushed down. I mean, let me turn off all these notes and take a look at this uptrend here. Trading a bit sideways, but very, very clearly SNX wants to go up in price. And again, the market pumping so much at the time being, if the market has a bit of a pullback, I could see SNX pulling back again as well. So for the time being, I keep my eye on this price target here of 11.2, and I keep my eye on this support here, 8.8. That's going to be a very crucial support for SNX. I'd be surprised to see it go back down that low. I think it's going to continue to put in these higher lows. This moving average is going to move around here in my opinion. So as far as a pullback, I keep my eye on 9.5 for a pullback for SNX, and the resistance you want to see it claim is 11.2, and then we want to see it challenge at least $12. If it can manage to claim $12, I think SNX can go anywhere from $13.7 to $15. But for the time being, price targets for SNX, 11.2 resistance, push towards 12, claim 12, and then push up from there. Pullback targets for the time being, I keep my eye on 9.5 and below that 8.8. Looking at Quant's daily chart here, and the reason there is not much behind me for those of you who are new here, this is Quant's Binance daily chart. So we're going to jump all the way down to the 1 hour time frame to get a bit more information, and we're going to turn on our notes from last time, and we're going to continue to talk about what is going on with Quant. And just real quick for anybody new here, the reason we're looking at Quant's Binance chart is because in my opinion, Binance listing Quant was the catalyst that made price go crazy. I mean, don't get me wrong, I know Quant was pumping prior, but Binance, the amount of volume traded on Binance daily is far beyond any other exchange. So it makes sense that a great project like Quant with a low supply would definitely pump off of a Binance listing. The question is where is Quant headed next? So I'm having a lot of fun keeping an eye on Quant. I'm going to be keeping an eye on Quant all the time, to be honest, because as far as price action goes, in my opinion, when I see something like this, it's really a matter of time before it comes crashing back down. And I know that's not what a lot of you guys want to hear, and I ask you to just hear me out for a moment. It's not that I'm not bullish on the long-term potential of Quant. The long-term potential of Quant is really not my focus or concern. My focus or concern when I look at charts and look for entries and exits is where is Quant going to be in the next couple weeks. And this is just Binance's 1 hour chart. As far as price action goes, this alone would have my interest to keep an eye on, but more so if we jump over to CoinMarketCap and you guys look behind me, Quant is pretty much moving in a straight parabolic line at this point. And if you've been involved in crypto or stocks or anything that involves looking through a little bit of technical analysis, you know that at this point, at some point, this is going to have to come crashing back down. So looking at this chart, there's a few things I wonder about. We talked a little bit yesterday about the fact that I do think all of this makes sense right here. All this price action right here was right after it got listed on Binance. Makes a lot of sense. The huge run up, the second run up, and then a bit of a correction here. However, all of this price action over here, in my opinion, I believe is Quant benefiting from Ethereum pumping up the entire market. There's a few other things going on as well. We are seeing Quant start to put in lower highs ever since this crazy run up. There's a high here, a lower high, a lower high, a lower high, and a continuation of lower highs. However, we are also seeing it put in higher lows. We are seeing a higher low here, a higher low there, a higher low there, and so on. So at some point, this is going to have to come to a squeezing point where Quant is either going to skyrocket or pull down in price. Now, the only reason why I am leaning more towards the pull down in price is because of this. And you have to take this into account, in my opinion. Don't get me wrong, it could always keep going. However, as far as probability goes, after all the months of crypto action we've seen, it's safe to say that this will most likely correct. And I think this range here, even if you're not looking at a candlestick chart, you can see that 120 range makes sense for a pullback. So as far as our price targets go, it's still 125 to 132 is where I think Quant will end up once we do see price correct aggressively. However, if Ethereum keeps pumping, there is no reason why this can't keep pumping as well. I mean, it is interesting to keep an eye on because in my opinion, I don't think this would have this second run up if it wasn't for Ethereum carrying the market. I think we would have seen that correction down to 125 and 132. And then from there, maybe Quant could have built pressure back up to continue to push up in price. But it's not even a matter of, let's say you're crazy bullish on Quant at this point. you have to think about this and you have to think about this, and that the fact that even if this wants to go much, much higher, it has to correct in order to do so. So correction, in my opinion, is still around 125 to 132. But if Ethereum does start to pull up the entire market and Quant manages to push back above 179 and claim it and retest 192, that correction might be in this 143 range again, and that could potentially be the bottom of the correction at most, depending on how high Quant pushes. But Quant, in my opinion, is way overextended as far as price action goes, and I think it does need to pull back in price. So for the time being, I keep my eye on this 174 support that it's kind of riding below. If 174 is lost, I'd start to keep my eye on this range here around 169. If 169 is lost, I keep my eye on this target here, 165. 165 or below, I'd pretty much keep my eye out for 143. It does have some bouncing points around 157, but if 165 is lost on the second run-up attempt, keep my eye on a pullback to 143, and if that does happen, I keep my eye on 133 to 125. But Quant still does look bullish, but the only question is all of this because of Quant now, or is this Ethereum carrying up the entire market? And I mean, everything is pumping at the moment. Every coin across the market is pumping, so I think it's safe to say that this movement, pretty identical to what we're seeing from Bitcoin and Ethereum, is probably led by this Ethereum pump. So in my opinion, it's only a matter of time now, probably soon, that we do see Quant trend back down below 174, test 168, land at 165, work its way back down, potentially somewhere around here to 155 for the time being. And then as the market starts to cool off, I keep my eye out for 143 to where it should end up, in my opinion, is where it has the most support. And from there, Quant can continue to push up in price. But my price targets for Quant are still around 125 to 132. But I keep my eye out for 175, 165, and 143 first. Looking at AXS's daily chart, AXS looks like it's either on the verge of being very bullish and pushing back towards all-time highs, or starting to trend down in price. But it's getting to that make or break point. I think it still looks good, but let's turn on our notes, jump to the 4-hour chart, and take a look at price targets and see how AXS is trending. So let's turn off all these notes and take a look at this. Even from this angle, AXS doesn't look too terrible in my opinion. It's got potential, but it's really riding right on the edge of either pushing up in price or not. All the indicators are pretty much smack in the middle as well. This is either going to uptrend from here or start its downtrend and retest $37. But as far as price action goes, still looking okay. One test of around 45 there. Bit of a pullback. It's hung on to most of its price action, staying in this higher range and not dropping down to that lower range. You can see here the bit of a downtrend here is starting to close up. That Kumo cloud might start twisting and we may see an uptrend from AXS. However, that is not guaranteed because it is still in a pretty tight zone here. So we turn on our price targets and take a look at the ones we talked about yesterday. The price targets are pretty similar to yesterday, but as far as price action goes, let's just move some of them over a little bit now that price action has moved over here. So I'd like to see AXS back above 44.5, a little lower than yesterday that we were looking for. And as far as pullbacks, I'd still like to see it trade above 41.6. I would not want to see AXS dip back below 41.6 because then it's not going to be trading in this higher range that it's trading in now. If it dips back below, I wouldn't be surprised to see it trade below 41.4 and then test 37.7 again. But you want to see it stay above 41.6 and it needs to push back above 44.5. Let's jump to the 3-hour chart for a moment. Turn off all these notes. The 3-hour chart is actually looking a little bit better than the 4-hour chart. You can see a bit of a trend change here. Not much. It could continue sideways for the time being, but AXS definitely does have potential. I'd like to see it push up in price towards 44.3, that lagging span conversion line baseline come out. But AXS is pretty much setting up for either a great short or a great long. It's pretty much smack in the middle of one of these two movements. I think it could trend up in price, but it really is still smack in the middle of deciding which way it wants to go. So my price targets are kind of what I will be keeping an eye on. If it can't break above 44.5 and it trends too low towards 41.46 or below, then I would be concerned that AXS is going to be trading back in this lower channel and may retest 37.7. But if AXS can trend up in price, break above 44 and show some strength towards 44.5 or above, then I would have some confidence that AXS might have the opportunity to push back towards 53.5. So as far as price targets go, I want to see AXS above 44.5 at minimum, show some strength towards 45, and then AXS possibly has the opportunity to push up towards 53.5 and potentially even new all-time highs. However, if AXS loses 41.4, then I would be concerned that AXS is headed back to this lower channel and may possibly test 37.7, and a retest of 37.7 if AXS is going to start trending down in price and correcting off that crazy run. I mean, AXS could go as low as 29, which is around that $30 range that we talked about on the daily. If I zoom out here, just around here, still wouldn't be totally bearish, but it's not a scenario I really want to watch happen. So as far as price action goes for the time being, I wouldn't really worry about this price target here, but I keep my eye on these price targets. It's got to get above 44.5, show some strength. Pullback targets, I keep my eye on 41.4 as a very major support level, and below that I keep my eye on 37.7. All right, folks, that's all for today. If there's any charts you want to look at in the future, leave it down in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, and turn that bell on to catch notifications for all daily uploads. If you're not following me on Twitter, KevinCrates_ on Twitter. I'm extremely active on there. Anytime you tweet at me, I will always tweet back at you. I hope you all have a great rest of your day. I'm out.